You're listening to Sea to Sky podcast, For Sisters by Sisters, with Marina Thompson and Dana Moreland. Brought to you by Sea to Sky alumni chapter of Alpha Omicron Pi. Welcome everyone to our second episode of Sea to Sky podcast. In our virtual studio, we have myself, Marina, and Dana. Our guest today is an entrepreneur, business owner, a VIT AOPI volunteer, and international vice president. She's also a loving mom. She initiated AOPI in Alpha Phi in 1995. Please welcome Chantel.
Hi, what a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So glad you could join us.
Chantal, you went to Montana State University. What did you study, and what are some of the highlights of your time in college?
Yeah, thank you. I did attend Montana State University and graduated from that esteemed institution in the mid 90s, late 90s was when I graduated. I studied lots of different things. Had four different majors before I landed on the one that would really stick. I started in psychology, in biology, and then English, and I ended up graduating with a degree in political science. So I had had a number of scholastic failures at the beginning of my career and just wasn't on the right path and just had so much, fun in the social aspects of college that I forgot about the academic parts. And I was actually asked to take a semester off to kind of find my path and find my way, formerly called scholastic probation. Dana probably knows all about those students, right? Those scholastic probation students in your work. And I ended up taking a semester off of school as requested. And I worked with a political organization in Montana and really fell in love with the political world. I had always been really engaged in current events, even as a small child. I was always, aware of what was happening on the world stage. And when the opportunity came to work in a political campaign, I said yes, and that changed my life. When I was finished with my required semester break, I went back to school and enrolled in the political science department. So I went from being very much a C student to excelling, made it to the dean's list, and all the things that we go to college to really strive for, right? Is that academic excellence. So when I found my right path, I really excelled in that arena. So political science became something that was just really powerful and impactful for me. Highlights of my time in college, include being asked to take a semester break, having this pretty epic failure of academic proportions, right? And at the same time, having this whole community of sisters in AOPI at the Alpha Phi chapter to really kind of lift me up and say, you know what, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. This is really hard right now, but you're okay. We're going to welcome you back when you're ready. And that was exactly how it played out.
That is so powerful. Sometimes you need to get down to get back up and find your right path. And I always thought this, we're asked to know what we want to do at 18, sometimes 17. And at that age, being with friends and celebrating life is more important. I'm very glad that you were able to find your passion, really stick with it, and excel.
Yeah.
I concur. I think those breaks, whether chosen by ourselves or chosen by others for us, can be very helpful to our academic careers. I took a break, and when I returned to school, like you, my focus was much more sharp. I had a path, whereas before I did not. So I really do encourage people. I know some families have stigma about dropping out or whatever they might call it. But I think that for a lot of people, taking that time to refocus and recenter can be very helpful and very productive. So well done. I say you did what I think universities expect people to do or hope that they'll do during that time. Currently, Chantel, you're working on a project involving Harvard University. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I am, even though I had a rough start academically, I believe very strongly in the power of learning. I, now 49 years old, and I'm constantly seeking new opportunities to learn and to grow. And I believe as leaders, that's really important for us to do, to continue to learn and to grow. So for the last couple of years, I've been enrolled in a program at Harvard around leadership and management. So it's a certificate program. I've completed one of three and look forward to completing the other two components of that to have that certification finalized. And it's all virtual. It's virtual learning, which has kind of changed the way we learn and communicate in society. The whole world, I feel like, has opened up in so many different ways, both powerfully and sometimes can be a challenge too. But I'm grateful that we have these opportunities to learn and grow virtually through organizations like Harvard. I've also done some studying with Berkeley and have a certificate in the science of happiness. I've done a program with Yale around the science of well-being. So that's really kind of been how I've supplemented my education, my formal education through Montana State University with some certificate type programs that just help really amplify the work that I do as a leadership consultant.
It is always great to know when people are willing to learn and stay
Mhm.
with the times. It really makes us better people and better for ourselves, but also the people we work with. So I am very happy to hear that you're open to looking out new windows and getting new perspectives. And you mentioned earlier that your AOPI sisters really helped you with early academic life. Can you share with us what has our AOPI sisterhood given you that you don't think you would have gotten anywhere else?
This is such a powerful question. And for me, it's simple and complicated at the same time. I grew up as an only child. I have no siblings. And one of the reasons I was really drawn to sorority life was the opportunity to have those powerful and deep connections with women my age. And that is definitely something that I gained through my affiliation with AOPI, just immediately having those women who, you could call upon whenever you needed help or you had a celebration or whatever it might be. And just having in Bozeman, we have a physical house, having that space to just walk into and feel like, oh, I'm home. And these are my sisters. This is my family, my chosen family through my college years. It's not hyperbole to say that that's exactly what my sisters have been to me, is a group of family members. And it's continued from not just when I, first became an AOPI, but to today. And every powerful thing that's happened in my life, I can connect back to my university and to my sorority. From meeting my now husband, who was a friend in college. We were volunteers together in a club at the university, and we became good friends. And we got married like 15 years after graduated from college, but we still have this foundation of what it meant to be at MSU at that time, and how my Greek connection was a catalyst to our connection. I think my career is deeply connected to our sisterhood and having this desire to really amplify leaders. I learned what leadership is and what good leadership is in AOPI as a member of a collegiate chapter, watching a group of women learn how to navigate society together, learn how to live together, learn how to disagree with each other, learn how to disagree productively, learn how to do everything that we needed to do as adults together in a community like we have in sorority life. It was extraordinarily powerful. And I'm constantly looking back at that time, what now, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, with nothing but gratitude for all of the building blocks that I gained from AOPI to today.
Chantel, you currently serve as one of AOPI's international vice presidents, and you have demonstrated engagement throughout your time as an AOPI alumna. If you would, describe for us what that looks like, your volunteering and your activities since becoming an alumna, And then, as a follow up question, how did you decide to run for the executive board?
Oh, these are all great questions. And I think it stems back to being given so much as a
Mhm.
collegiate member that I wanted to pretty immediately give back. And I became a local volunteer in Kentucky, where I was actually working on some political campaigns. I lived in Kentucky in the early 2000s, like 2003 to about 2007. And it was the first opportunity that I had to really engage with a collegiate chapter that wasn't my own, and worked with the Alpha Pi chapter at the University of Louisville, was one of their advisors. And then moved on to Lexington, Kentucky, where I worked with the Kappa Omega chapter and served in a number of different advisory roles, including chapter advisor. And I really fell in love with the opportunity to engage with collegiate members, in that pivotal place, because I was so impacted by my advisors, who I'm still connected with. Bev Townsend, Carrie Hansen, people that, who advised my collegiate chapter 30 years ago are still people that I connect with on a very regular basis. So from early opportunities working with Kentucky chapters, I then came back to Montana shortly after that, around 2008, and started working with the Alpha Phi chapter, again, as a number of different advisors and chapter advisor. And then I moved up to work with a network specialist, and that's actually where I got to meet Dana when I was working with a chapter in California. So then I started to expand my experience not only in the different roles but in different regions around North American footprint. And the work that I did with the chapter in California really kind of helped me see, there is a big AOPI world, and I wanted to explore as much of it as I could. And I really wanted to have as layered of experiences as I could find. After my time in that network specialist role ended, went back to Bozeman and worked with our alumni chapter. So I was the president of our alumni chapter, much like Marina. So I kind of gathered this, really robust experience over, at that point, about 20 years of consistent and constant service to AOPI in some way, whether it was at a local collegiate level, the network specialist level, or at the alumni level. And that all kind of built this foundation of, someday I think it would be cool to serve on the executive board, maybe 10, 15 years from now. And kind of had this image of women who serve on the executive board as being in a different place and time than I was when I got a call from a sister who was on the executive board at the time, who said, I think you should do this. I think you would be great for this. And it was the first time that I thought, this isn't a future goal and wish and hope. This is a now wish and goal and hope. This is something that I can do now because she's doing now. And she's my age. She's, similar station in life. And so my eyes were just kind of opened up to the possibility of serving in this current time and moment. So I ran in 2021, our full virtual pandemic convention, and then was lucky to be reelected in 2023 when we had our convention in Dallas.
What is your greatest accomplishment in this role so far?
That's a great question, because so much of what we do on the executive board is very future focused, very strategic. We're looking ahead to 10, 15 years from now. What does Greek life look like? What does collegiate life look like? So our accomplishments are more of seeds that we're planting now
Mhm.
that will be beneficial for the fraternity in the future. So I think that as a member of the executive board, and currently I serve as the chair of the Membership Connection Committee, one of my goals in having some of those more immediate accomplishments, to use your word, is to find new ways to engage and connect with our sisters. And we do that through a number of initiatives. from calling them directly to emailing them to texting them to connecting in with our volunteers at different levels to hosting various virtual opportunities for our sisters to connect. I think that the executive board members have such a powerful role in ensuring that that connection is made between our members and our fraternity at large. So I would say one of my biggest accomplishments is just being laser focused on what does it mean to feel connected? What does it mean to create a sense of belonging for all of our sisters, regardless of geography, regardless of ideology, regardless of your historical background or where you are in life? We want AOPI to meet you where you are and to understand that engagement means something different to each one of us.
I can see your impact already. Just a few short months ago, you and I had a chat very much like this one, and you interviewed me about my experience as a Canadian AOPI and what, from my perspective, Canadian AOPIs need. And I felt heard and seen in that moment. The questions you asked were really good questions. And then you wrote an article about it, and I read that article very enthusiastically. And I picked out some of the stuff that I told you, and I was very proud that I made it in there.
Well, I think it's so important that representation matters. When I was first elected to the executive board, I was at that time the only member of the executive board that represented the Western part of our
Mhm.
footprint. Western United States, Western Canada. When we think of a lot of our volunteers, we see Southern and Eastern chapters represented, but we don't always see Western ones. That was also an important catalyst for me saying yes to the invitation to run. I wanted to see more representation of smaller, rural, Western perspectives and chapters, and it still is something that is very important to me to make sure that we do have more representation. And now we've got another Western representative on the executive board, and we've got some
Mhm.
Midwestern voices too. And it's, for me, I think that that's really important to make sure, especially as a sense of belonging is one of our primary ends. One of the things that we're really passionate about is that we create that sense of belonging for everyone.
I will say that in the last couple of years, certainly my perspective is it's no surprise to me that you're involved with this initiative, but is making a more concerted effort to take a variety of perspectives and experiences into account and just asking questions and listening and being willing and open to recognizing that there are going to be a multitude of perspectives and ideas and that that's okay. That makes the organization healthy because that was not always the perception that members had. And I am embracing and loving the cultural shift that we're making within the organization. And certainly thank you for your contributions in that effort. It's just lovely to see.
Thank you for saying that. I think it's important for me to hear. I'll speak for myself. I'm one that in any conversation, I'm asking the question of whose voice isn't represented in this
Mhm.
conversation. And those are questions that I ask every meeting that we have. Whose voice isn't being heard? Where do we need to lean into some deeper representation? And to hear you say that you're seeing that on the other side of those questions makes me feel like it's okay to keep asking those questions.
Mhm. Oh, I think we have to. And certainly, I mean, the executive board looking 10, 15 years ahead to the future because we know we're in a time of significant paradigm shift for who's going to be going to college in the next decade and what that looks like. And then also my great passion, alumni engagement. What does that look like and how can we be more effective? And how many different ways can we engage our alumni? And yes, this cultural shift, it's just delightful.
Can I just add one thing onto there? Because you talked about engagement, alumni engagement, and I been a passion of mine to recognize that yes, alumni engagement means you're a volunteer, it means that you're a donor, it means these, various things that it has always traditionally meant. And it also means I get together with my college best friends once a year for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
right? It can, like I said, it looks different for everyone. It doesn't have to be
Right.
this cookie cutter
Mm-mm.
of what engagement means. And I think the more we recognize that difference of what engagement means, the more we're actually going to engage our members.
Agreed. 100% agreed. As International Vice President, one of your responsibilities was to be the installing officer for the Sea to Sky Alumni Chapter. Speaking of alumni engagement, tell us what that experience was like for you as the installing officer.
It was such an honor and a privilege and a pleasure. And at that time, I was the closest member to the Greater Vancouver area. So I was asked to say yes to this experience, and it was like not even a question in my mind. Of course, I'm going to go do this. We so often are asked to go to different events and honor chapters in various ways. And I haven't had very many of those invitations. In fact, this is the only one because of my geographic location, because I'm way out here in the West. For me, it was not only my first opportunity to officially engage with a chapter, it was and still has been the only one. Depending on what the future holds for me in the executive board service, it might be the only one. For me, it is one of those things that I think is foundational to my experience on the executive board and will be one of those things that I will take with me all the time. And you all made these beautiful swag items that with your amazing logo, and your branding is just so special.
Mhm.
I've got the mug, I've got the keychain, like where I can see them every day, literally every day. The mug is on top of my refrigerator holding my dry erase markers, my family's calendar. So I literally see it every day. And I think about how special it was to be a part of that event, to help bring this new life into our alumni in your area. And it was just, yeah, it was such an honor.
Thank you for that, Chantal. I didn't realize it was your first time. You were so confident and you did such a brilliant job with the ritual and you carried yourself with grace. I did not suspect this is your first time performing that particular ritual. I wouldn't have guessed that you're nervous, for example, or anything like that. And now I suspecting that maybe there were some butterflies in
I
there
think,
too.
yeah, some butterflies. I've done, led a couple of rituals as alumni president, but I have never done the installation ritual. It was a little butterfly for sure, but I'm glad that I came across as like I knew what I was doing. Fake it till you make it, right?
Chantal, you're an entrepreneur, director, and owner of True North Leadership. What is True North Leadership?
That's a great question. I have had a very multifaceted career, starting in politics. I've also worked in government, worked in private sector, worked for nonprofits. Just really have had this, much like my AOPI service, my professional service has been, I've tried to touch as many different industries as I can. 11 years ago or so, I was invited to run an organization called Leadership Montana. And there I became very passionate about leadership and leadership theories, but leadership in practice, how we take what we're learning in theory and we actually put it into practice. So after serving in that organization for about 10 years, I wanted to take what I had learned through my full career from government and politics to nonprofits and with this new lens of leadership to design a company that could help leaders in those various industries, which is all of them, really amplify and elevate their leadership experiences. So True North Leadership is a consulting firm. It's a small one. It's just me, and sometimes I bring in some other support as needed. But I get to work with companies and people all over the United States, from Alaska to Atlanta, and from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. And I get to help them identify how they want to be stronger leaders and then create a path for us to do that. So I do that through coaching, I do that through workshops, I do that through keynote speeches, I do that through a number of different ways of helping folks identify, not only what are their goals, but what are their values and how do their values amplify and elevate their goals for success. So I've been in business now for myself for just over a year. I really enjoy it. I enjoy working with lots of different types of people. I think last year I had something like 1,800 people connected into my programs in some way, working with clients in 6 different states and just having this opportunity to take an impact that I thought was really Montana focused and expand it across not only my region in the US, but across the US as a whole.
You had such a broad expanse of professional experiences and your AOPI experiences as well. And I certainly know, as someone who has watched and admired that, would certainly see you as someone who's incredibly successful in leading a productive life that gives back to others. That probably tells you sort of what my definition of success is in life. But what is yours, Chantel? How do you define success in life?
I think we're very much aligned in that, Dana. I think that I define success as how can I help someone else? How can I elevate someone else's experience? How can I
Mm-hmm.
empower them? I think that a successful life, and it's funny, I just had this conversation yesterday with my uncle, who shared with me something that he had read recently about defining how you want to live your life by defining how you want to be remembered. What does your
Mm-hmm.
obituary say? And how do you put yourself in a position to make that obituary a reality? It's kind of a, maybe a little morbid thing to think about. But as we're walking to the end of our lives, whenever that may be, what is it that we want to have accomplished? Do
Mm-hmm.
we want a certain, dollar amount in the bank, or do we want to have a certain level of legacy and impact on other people's lives? And I tend to lean towards that. I want the legacy and the impact on people's lives. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, success means being happy, being healthy, and helping other people find happiness and health in the same way.
Wonderful. Thanks.
That is very insightful. So I was wondering, do you think your AOPI experience has influenced your professional and personal life?
I think that AOPI has influenced my professional and personal life in every step along the way, really, from the first time I walked into the Alpha Phi House in Bozeman to, having this conversation right here. I think that it would be really hard for me to find anything in my life, including my marriage, including my family, including my best friends, who don't in some way connect to AOPI. And I think that the level of confidence that I was able to gain in my time in the collegiate chapter, and then to watch that grow over time with my involvement as an alumni, is really kind of foundational in that way. Someone asked me once if I've always been so confident. And the answer to that question was no. But I can very easily pinpoint to when that started to change for me. And that was in, the ages of, 19 to 22. And I started to build the foundation of who I wanted to be and stack these,
Mm-hmm.
components of my personality because of what I was learning at AOPI about leadership, about connection, about friendship, about love, about heartbreak, about grief, about loss, about all of these things that we experience in life. To have that kind of encapsulated into a 4 or 5 year experience as a young adult is such a powerful gift. To be able to graduate from college and have this sorority experience to build the foundation of my life on. I don't know who I would be without those two things.
I think it's so impactful, particularly when speaking with young people who are finding a path. And I don't think that there's like just one path we have for life, right? There's lots of different branches. So, really, this is a question for anyone, but particularly young people. And we've all three of us had the opportunity to work with our collegiate sisters as advisors. And the important thing is to ask them, who do you want to be? Not necessarily what do you want to be, because our professional pursuits, our AOPI pursuits, those are only two facets of our life. But who do you want to be is the foundation for everything. And asking people that question and getting them to think about it, even thinking about it ourselves, is very different than just what do you want to be. And I think it's a much more worthwhile question. Get you thinking really about what impact you want to have on the world. We've had the opportunity to speak about your professional experiences and your AOPI experiences. Chantel, tell us about your family experiences. Who are the people that are important to you in your life?
I love that question. And it makes me think too about, Dana, how you say, it's not just what do you want to be, but who do you want to be? And I think as adults, so often the first question when we meet a new colleague or acquaintance or something, most often the question that we ask is, what do you do? Where do
Mm-hmm.
you work? And I am trying to change that for myself, to ask questions more like, what are you passionate about? What are you excited about? What do you do today? Before really jumping into those professional things. And when I do that, I get to this level of conversations that actually start with people's families first. And my family is small but mighty, and it's consisting of my husband Dax, who I met in college at Montana State University, and our son Dax Michael, who is 12 and obsessed with the NFL. He loves football, all things football. He has a playroom that is dedicated to his favorite football teams and all of the things that he loves to do around football. He is a remarkable kid with a pretty challenging story. He was born very early, almost 3 months premature.
Wow.
And from the beginning, it was very clear that he was going to have challenges, and he does. And we meet those challenges every single day with a sense of gratitude and joy and happiness and lightness as much as we possibly can. He has a very complicated medical journey. It's a reminder to us that what matters most is what is right in front of us. It's today, it's right here, it's right now. It's a reminder to not worry about the future and let go of the past. I think that more than anything else, being Dax's mom has shaped that philosophy for me of being present, being here right now, being consistent, showing up, being accountable, and doing what you say you're going to do. And all of these things that we talk about doing, especially as leaders in my professional world as a leadership consultant, we talk about being accountable. When you've got a kid who's as awesome as Dax is, he reminds us every single day what it means to show up and be accountable.
As a follow up, who or what inspires you?
Oh, so many things and so many people. And I try really hard to build into every day moments of intentional inspirational seeking. So that starts with, meditation. It starts with reading. And trying to, always be reading, a little bit in the morning with journaling and really kind of setting this foundation for myself of seeking guidance and wisdom from people much smarter than me. I found a lot of inspiration lately in the Daily Stoic. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but
Mm-mm.
or Stoic philosophy. I found a lot of inspiration in that. I find a lot of inspiration in our ritual. I'm always excited when we have official
Mhm.
AOPI events and we get to hear and feel a little bit of ritualness. And there are people in my life who really just kind of exude the AOPI ritual, like Bev Townsend, who I've mentioned, and
Mhm.
people who have created this life for themselves that look very much like how I want to live and be in my life. There was a woman who just recently passed away just this week who definitely filled that role for me. Of being someone who I wanted to really kind of emulate. So having, even while it's sad to say goodbye to someone that you admire in that way, I think it's also a really powerful reminder of what good we do while we're here and how important it is that we share who we are as people.
Mhm.
One theme that keeps coming back in our conversation is being present. Can you tell us what made you smile today or recently?
Well, you can see I'm smiling right now talking to the two of you. Gosh. Well, we're recording this on December 27th, so we've just had Christmas and we're in the middle of Hanukkah and New Year is coming. My favorite time of year is this time of year where we get to really kind of think about where we've been and think about where we want to go. So even though I'm very much like live in the moment, I do take time to reflect on what has been great about this year and what do I want to make special about the next year. So there have been a number of opportunities for me to smile and to be just gloriously happy this week. And with my son home from school, we've watched a lot of Christmas movies, and one of our favorites is Elf. And
Mm.
watching him watch Elf for the first time was like a laugh a minute sort of experience.
It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. You're so right. There's so many things that make us smile, and we need to
Mhm.
focus on those things because we have so many things to be happy for.
Absolutely. I think it's so important that we walk through the world with as much of a positive mindset as we can. And that's really hard sometimes. That's really hard for me. That's not my natural disposition. I have to work really hard at having that positive mindset. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why I spend so much time in the morning, moving my body, nourishing my mind to set up that foundation of positivity, because we do live in such a strange time with so much division globally. And if we, I believe, can slow down enough to remind ourselves of what's good, we can build more of that goodness into the world. And I think we need it so desperately. I'm trying to do my part, and I'm trying to encourage others to do theirs as well, of just being the light that you want to see, being the change that you want to see, being who you want other people to be, because that energy just really influences the people around us.
And it definitely, I mean, we do have to work at that and nourish ourselves in every way and take care of ourselves, because it would be easy to be overwhelmed with anguish or despair about so much that is divisive in the world. So carving out that time to nurture ourselves is just crucial, because to keep that light for ourselves but also to share it with others, it's work, and it's absolutely crucial, because who wants to live in despair and anguish? I don't, and I know that both of you don't, and I know our listeners don't. So yeah, self nourishing is so important.
To go back to your question about success, Dana, I think that, I mean, that is it for me, is can I influence others to be positive, joyous light in this time that we are experiencing?
Yeah.
I see, Dana, you've got the, I just said that you be the change you want to see in the world. You've got that right on your wall.
I do, yeah. So I'm in my office at work. And so I have that, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I have, it isn't what we say or think, but what we do that impacts people. I just feel that we have to create that physical environment. And that's part of nourishing ourselves. And like in my office here at work, I have a lot of artwork, some that I did, a lot that others did. And what I really love is that sometimes some of our other employees will come in and just sit in the other chair in my office just to zen a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I have designed my office properly then, when other people seek it out as well. Because normally people are terrified of the HR director. So
I love that. I think you're totally right to have that space that exudes who you want to be inside and
Mhm.
out.
Carving out these spaces for ourselves and individuals, and to be able to share really precious time like this, it's so crucial. I think part of the beauty of what engagement at any level within AOPI can look like too, going back to Chantel's point about what does engagement look like, it's not just one way. And whether it's the three of us getting together to have this great time together, or whether it's a, I don't know, 100th anniversary celebration. One of the alumni chapters I work with is celebrating their 100th next month, which incredible. It looks very different all the time and for each person. And I think that the more that we can create it in all of its different ways, the better for all of us and for the organization as well.
Couldn't agree more. I think that especially as we navigate the future of everything, being able to honor a little bit of our past and where we've been and where we are just helps us to grow into where we will be. And I love watching collegiate chapters and alumni chapters connect with each other. That's one of my favorite things to walk into. When I walk into an event where we've got young collegiate members and alumni who've been around for 50 years, and they might not think that they have anything in common, but they absolutely do. And when they can strike up a conversation about what's great in your life, what are you excited about in AOPI, that is the power of our fraternity and the power of our ritual in action in a lot of ways. So thank you both for the work that you do to bring those opportunities to chapters, collegiate and alumni in your areas. And you're both just shining examples of how you do it right. And I've always been so proud, Dana, to watch
Oh.
Reno, Nevada, Tahoe chapters just clean up at award season, right? And being again a Western chapter, and I've always been just cheering for you all to do that. And then to see the sky in your first year have just remarkable recognition.
Yes.
Like those are the things that when I look back on my time in the executive board, those are the things I'm going to be proud of. my fellow Western chapters just doing really good stuff and getting to watch it.
Thank you, Chantel. This is such a great conversation. You did give away the date we're recording on December 27th.
Sorry.
So we'll let you go and go back to your families and enjoy the festivities.
Well, and we're having a hot chocolate bar for our associates today. So I get to go serve hot chocolate to people for the next hour and a half, which has me really pumped.
That sounds lovely. Spread
Yeah,
that joy.
Thank you both so much for joining me today, and
sure.
have a great evening and the rest of your holidays, and Happy New Year.
Thank you
Happy New
both.
Year to both of you. See
Have
you
a
in
good one.
California.
Yes, ma'am.
See you in California. Thanks for listening to Sea to Sky podcast. For Sisters by Sisters with Marina Thompson and Dana Moreland. Brought to you by Sea to Sky Alumna Chapter of Alpha Omicron Pi. Till next time.